Pamela. I appreciate your kind words. Appreciate the opportunity to be here as we have this Reimagine Parenting Symposium as a way to commemorate the launch of the book, The Excellence Journal, the student study journal for self-directed learning. My job, of course, this afternoon is to share about the importance of journaling as a strategy for supporting student development. And even as we use this opportunity, I use this opportunity to commemorate the launch of the book. I say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to tell a story this evening. And I want to start the story in 2005. Back in 2005, and imagine I have to say back, time just really goes. But in 2005, as a full time teacher, one of the things I noticed is that after a session, after a day of school, a lot of students could not explain what they learned. They went, they got home, they came back the next day, and you would ask them, tell me about what we did in English yesterday. And for the life of them, a class full of blank spaces. And I say, certainly, I know it's not because they didn't learn well, because I was the teacher. I was in the classroom with them. They responded so well. They got their question correct. But my, oh my, for the life of it all, they could not recall or use the information many a times hours, days, or even, oh, though let's not say a month after, it could not be used. And so in 2005, I started a practice. And the practice was simple: engage dialogue. And this started what I call now my favorite question: how was today's session for you? Or if I'm in a meeting, how was today's meeting for you? And I'm sure anyone hearing me even share this piece of the story right now, and they've maybe been with me, they would be laughing because they know I really do it. It doesn't matter whether it's formal or it's informal. How was this for you? Why? Because when we engage dialogue after a session, after a day, after an experience, what we do is we take the person we're communicating with and we bring them into a place of reflection where we could sit, we could think, we could talk, we could discuss, we could ask questions. So in 2005, I started as a staple part of the Lewis experience in a classroom saying, how was today's session for you? And I continued on because what I realized is that students who before that time, before that practice, who did really great in class, but afterwards they couldn't tell you what was going on. No, not only could they tell me what happened that day, but when they went home, they could share it with others. If you say, hey, how was school today? What did you do in school? The practice of them having taken those couple minutes to reflect and discuss made a huge difference in the turnaround that I saw, not only in their behavior, but even in their grades. Memory was improving. But by the time I got to 2011, I said, surely there must be more. Because now I wasn't a full-time teacher anymore. Now I was getting involved in student remediation and family support. And in working with parents, I found it so very interesting. I would talk to parents and say to them, hey, how is your child? How is things going for them? What's going on in school? And parents would say, Miss, I don't know. Miss, I'm not sure. And I'd be like, well, how? Do you not ask? And they would say, Miss, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to ask. And that stood out like a red flag, sore thumb for me. I was disturbed. And I said, you know what? Let's take this principle of dialogue and let's bring it to the homes. And what I did in 2011 is I started taking the dialogue further to include family involvement. And in this way, I was saying, let's find a way to bring a communication between the child and the parents that caused them to explore what was happening. And the tool that was used at that time in a very simple way was based on the notion of journaling. And that's why I'm so passionate about today. Because not only have I read the research, but I have taken a personal and a professional journey as it pertains to journaling. And for those who are viewing, I really want to encourage moms, dads, aunties, uncles, guardians, everyone to understand that journaling results in students children, teens, infants, sharing their opinions more openly with each other. Studies show us that when children reflect, and of course, when you hear me use the word children, I might use it interchangeably, children, teens, infants. But when our kids, when they reflect on their own thinking process, what happens is that they're now able to recognize the importance of self exploration, questioning, and connecting ideas. And even better, when this reflection is in written form, students have a source of dialogue prepared for use. So now mommies and daddies don't have to feel disconnected from their kids. They don't have to feel as though, well, I don't know what to ask. There is a template of sorts that they could use to have the prompts needed to ask the pertinent questions that are not just for general discussion, but especially the questions that we want to ask when we want to direct it towards improving student achievement. So journaling then helps students to be less restrained. Why? Because we're training them to think and to communicate and to share. So journaling then is helping the student to be less restrained when they're expressing themselves, and it gives them some time to organize their thoughts. Some children are talkers. I was one of those kids when I was young. My mom used to say, oh gosh, hush now. Stop talking now. I mean, of course we laugh. I say, mommy, look at it. Imagine if I did hush, what would have happened? But imagine not all children are talkers in that regard. So especially for the children who are not talkers, who they probably need that moment to sit and figure out their thoughts. Journaling, and especially when it's encouraged by the parent, gives the child the opportunity to pull away, get their thoughts together, write it down. Not all children like to talk it out. Some children like to write it out. And we're now able to cater to all these different types of responsiveness, which in turn gives them the confidence that they need to be able to participate in classroom discussions, be able to participate in at-home discussions. I'll give you a quick example. Just yesterday, I was chatting with a student, and as is my habit, I said, hey, what's today's session for you? Because we're doing some remediation work. And, he responded. And then I said to him, I said, but how are things with school? And he paused and he smiled and he said, Miss, I just answer questions in class now. And I say, hey, that's my boy. You know why? Because he too is now on a journey with me where 2 weeks ago, this is the same young man who sat in front of me with his mom and dad and said, I don't want to go to school anymore. And I say, you know what? That's okay. I understand how you feel, but at least be willing to work with me. And I bet you, if you work with me, that feeling would change. And guess what? 2 weeks later, after having these remedial sessions organized for him, after going through his journaling process, 2 weeks later, the child who was saying, I don't want to go to school, is now saying, Miss, I answer questions in class and I participate and I talk with the other children now. Look at that. 2 weeks later. Why? Because we're using a process that works. Journaling, it works. It helps. And so as the years went by, we could see now through research, through individual examples, through group, I could see where this thing about journaling, it supports the child and it supports the student, the parent. So you know what happened? Some more time rolled around, and in 2017, I said, you know what? We need to formalize this and put some pen to paper. So I started developing a prototype, because I understood clearly that journal writing facilitates reflection. And not only does it help the student to be able to talk about what they did in school, what went on with maths and English and science, but it helps them to express feelings regarding their educational experiences if directed well. And there are very few activities that could really trump journal writing for understanding and supporting the development of student thinking. So we're seeing here, and I hope you're grasping, and those who are looking on are following on with this story, where it's not just about only adopting one approach to journalizing. But remember, I said when I started in 2005, my kids were not even writing. And of course, when I say my kids, I mean the students at my school. Yeah. My kids were not even writing as yet. We were just talking. So, guess what? Mommy, daddy, auntie, uncle, if you're saying that writing thing, I ain't sure if that's me. I want to encourage you. If you're listening in today and you're saying, I want to better help my child with his or her schoolwork, but maybe you didn't go to school, maybe you have some other challenge that prevents you from getting formal with the writing, I want to encourage you to know that even if as simple as dialogue, you could implement the principles that I'm sharing by having these important conversations, prompting the kids. You might not have a book, but you might have a copybook at home. You might have an old notebook at home. Hey, use what you have. Never let what you think to be a lack of resources be a reason for you to sit back and say, I wish I could do better, but I can't. Hey, as the adage says, where there is a will, there is a way. And so if you could move past dialogue and you could help your child put pen to paper, even if it's a blank piece of paper where they get to write out their thoughts, write their concerns, write to share what they understood, what they didn't understand, that process in itself too would help. But even from a formal perspective, after we get this prototype going in 2018, one of the things I did is that I expanded the practice to include learning and study skills development. Remember, I keep saying journal writing assignments can benefit the student by enhancing reflection, facilitating critical thought, helping them express feelings. But guess what? Children grow up differently. Some children grow up in spaces where they learn the skill of being able to settle in with their book and review and make notes because they probably see a pattern, whether at school, at their home, in another group. But there are many other students that they probably don't have that exposure. So I tell the story of the 2018 portion of my journey to say, parents, be encouraged as you support your children towards improving achievement. Also pay attention to making sure you are intentional about including learning and study skills as part of the exposure that you give to your kids. Content is important, exams are important, but when we have a child who sits overwhelmed and don't understand to understand, I know it sounds funny, but it's a real thing. A lot of children struggle with understanding how to understand because the basic skills of learning and studying, they've not had encouraged and framed around them. So I want to encourage you, just as I have done in my journey and so many other professionals and educators do in theirs, you too at home could do your own version. Use journal writing so that you can help adapt the student development to bridge that gap. So that when you give them the opportunity to write and to look at the patterns of thought and behavior and what they did, when they did, how they did, and the results it gave, it helps them to learn how to adjust and to adapt. It works well. And of course, now we are here in 2021. And in 2021, I am recognizing and celebrating, I'll call it a formula. Celebrating a formula that says this: when we take student thought and we combine that with student journaling, and we combine that by putting in dialogue between the parent and the child, and we support parents to better support their child, do you know what we get? We get improved grades. We get increased student achievement. We get confident children. Why? Because we are helping students to be able to step in to being their best sense of self. That our kids do not have to sit and feel defeated. They do not. They do not have to sit and feel defeated. But our children can have confidence because we're helping them, we're guiding them to take them through a process where they could learn to tap into their own thoughts, tap into what they understand, able to pull back and say, this worked, this didn't work. Mommy, I feel I want to continue doing it this way. No, Mommy, I don't like that method. I get trouble to get the answer correct. And that dialogue between the parent and child that we're able to foster because of journaling makes a huge difference in the results that you get. So here it is in 2021. I am super excited to be here on this panel, on this symposium, sharing about journaling, but also to share about the Excellence Journal, because the Excellence Journal does all this and so much more, as it gives the prompts and the templates that are needed to support, so that for the parents who want to do it but are saying, I don't really know how to go about that, that's what the book is there for. It's there to be used as a tool. But guess what? For every other parent who want to get started now, today is Saturday, you want to start tomorrow after you take a little nappy nap, and you want to start tomorrow, you want to start Monday after school, I want to give you some very practical tips about how you can engage journaling in your home now using the resources that you have. And the first tip I want to give you is to be consistent. I want you to remember that regular journaling, that time for the dialogue, that time for the writing, sometimes it takes practice. It takes practice for the parent to have the discipline and the routine to encourage their kids to do it. But it also takes practice and routine for the child to want to do it. And listen, I understand it might be a little bit of a pull and tug in the beginning, but with every other good thing, you keep at it and be consistent, and you will see results over time. And remember, when we talk about results, we talk about increased understanding, the ability to be reflective, increase in confidence, improved communication between you and your child, and the opportunity to have increased communication between you and your school teacher, because now you're collecting data, right? The second tip I want to give you for journaling at home is to remember to give direction. Make sure your child has a clear understanding of what you expect. Don't just hand them a piece of paper, hand them a book, hand them the Excellence Journal and say, okay, right, go ahead and write. No. Talk it through. Make sure they're clear on their understanding about what is expected so they could give their best effort. Remember, with journaling, there is no right or wrong answer, but there is a place to engage the experience productively. Use writing prompts. The Excellence Journal gives you prompts, but let's say you're starting now, you're starting this evening, then you think about the questions. What do you want to know? What do you want to encourage your child to answer, to be reflective concerning? And don't be afraid to use free writing. Sometimes as parents, we could take it for granted that children experience what for them are complex emotions. And so sometimes free writing allows the child just to write it out, to get it out their system, what they're feeling, what they're going through, especially that they're not in school, not within their regular framework. And so you want to give them the opportunity to express what they're experiencing and going through, so that way you can understand how to best help them. And no, mommies and daddies, that is not just about giving them to write, but you want to review what they're writing. This is not a cutie pie journaling we're talking about here, where you're writing about, the thing, the ice cream parlor that make you blush. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about journaling where we are reflecting on our day's experience with our schooling and our ability to get our homework done and these learning experiences. So mommies and daddies, this is not private information to tuck in a corner. This is information you want to read, because again, remember, it's not a right and wrong. It's about understanding the student's experience. So you would know, is this something I could support at home? Is this something I need to talk to the teacher about? Is this something I need to get additional support from maybe a counselor, social worker, or some sort of a remediation center? You want to review what your child is writing. So you are now armed with the information you need to make a difference. And of course, last but certainly not least, encourage self-evaluation. Encourage your children, your child to be reflective, to think, so that when they go through their own journey, journaling process, over time, they're supposed to be able to come to you and say, Mommy, I was reading my journal and I realized that when I create the questions first, it makes it easier for me to answer the question, or whatever they might come to you to say. So remember, moms and dads, be patient, be understanding, and know that including journaling as part of the learning experience while we're schooling from home in what I like to call these COVID recovery days, it can make a big difference in how the learning and the experience unfolds for your child. So, of course, I really appreciate all those who have tuned in. Thanks for the time to share. And I really trust that the information that I've just shared about journaling works well. And even as I step out, I want to take a quick moment and share just a short clip from a parent that would have had some experience and exposure to the Excellence Journal Student Study Guide for Self-Directed Learning.
My name is Pamela Ramcharan and I use the Excellence Journal. This is a wonderful book for parents, for children, for teens, and for young adults. And you know something? This book is a wonderful way by which parents can work together with their children when it comes to their schoolwork, and even also keeping on top and updated on their children's performance during the term. It is also a great opportunity for parents to interact with their children, spend more time with them as it comes to studying and even interacting with their children, discussing what is going on in the school environment. And the journal is actually a chance for the children to let the parents know the difficulties that they may be facing, and for the parents as well, in getting that information from their children, they can have great interactions with the teachers to find out strategies and ways in which they can assist the children to improve in their work. And one part that I love so much about it is that planning at the beginning of the school term. I think that is wonderful because, as for me, being a parent of children who are into the secondary school system, it is sometimes difficult for us to keep up with what our children are doing, particularly for those of us who have more than one child. And planning before the beginning of the term with this journal, ensuring that we know what the children have to do, the work that will be covered during the term. And I am just recommending this Excellence Journal for each and every parent out there. Whether you are a parent, whether you are a guardian for your children, you will not regret it.